Hi, everybody. Richard Tromans from Artificial Lawyer TV here again. Today, we're talking about knowledge management, and we've got three fantastic guests to talk about the subject, two vendors and someone from a law firm. Joining us, first of all, is Richard Robbins. Richard, if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role and your firm.
Sure. Hi, thanks for letting me participate in this session today. It's going to be very exciting. Again, I'm Richard Robbins, Director of Knowledge Management at Sidley Austin. We're a global law firm based in Chicago with a broad range of practices and about 2,000 lawyers around the world.
Fantastic. And in terms of your role, what does your role actually mean? What do you actually do?
So what we do is I serve as a co-lead of our knowledge management efforts. And so we're coordinating the work that we do for our individual practices, supporting them. We have knowledge management attorneys who are lodged in many of them. Each of them has a knowledge management plan. We help them develop that and execute on that. We also look at broader technology initiatives or broader projects that cut across broad swaths of the firm, things like enterprise search or firm intelligence, and data visualization, interesting uses of artificial intelligence. So it's a broad range of things that we work on.
Fantastic. And that segues nicely to Cindy and Joe. Let's start off with Cindy. So Cindy, if you could just tell us a bit about yourself and Foundation. What is that all about?
Absolutely. Thank you, Richard, again, for hosting today. And I'm Cindy Thurston Bear. I'm the Vice President of Customer Product Management at Foundation Software Group. I have been 20 years in the legal industry. I've been the Director of Knowledge Management at several large global law firms as well. I helped implement Foundation while I was at Oric and moved to the company about 3 years ago. But Foundation essentially is a data platform that's used by large global law firms to help serve their clients more effectively, to bring data together, and to leverage that data in all of your firm systems, including things like iManage Insight.
Fantastic. Nice introduction to Joe. Joe, well, I'm sure a lot of people probably already know iManage Raven, but for those who don't, if you could just tell us a little bit about it and your role.
Sure, yeah. Thanks. My name's Joe Campbell. I'm a product manager at iManage Raven. I've been with Raven for a number of years and was one of the early employees. So what iManage is a DMS, and what iManage document management system, and iManage Raven really is the embedded AI within that DMS. So it's a unique content engine really that harnesses the power of AI and machine learning to gain new insights and automates very routine tasks.
So thank you very much to the panel for introducing themselves. So let's press on. So first of all of this fundamentally is about the clients, and in this case, it's Sidley, the very large US-based international law firm. In terms of knowledge management and in terms of working with Raven and Foundation, and we'll get into that in more detail, but just broadly, Richard, if you just explain what was Sidley trying to do in terms of changing its approach or improving its approach to knowledge management?
Well, so our knowledge management efforts kind of across the organization really picked up heavily in late 2015, early 2016, when we did a strategic review, working with Fireman & Co. and senior leadership at the firm to come up with a strategy, an enterprise-wide strategy for approaching knowledge management. And so we had a broad roadmap, which we began executing on in earnest mid to late 2016 and have ever since. So what we're talking about today is one strand of a much broader program, again, broken down, as I had mentioned in the introduction, with roughly an even split between trying to identify and address the needs of individual practice groups, and then looking at things that we could do kind of cross enterprise. So the focus today is more on one of the, probably one of our two largest efforts across enterprise, which is the work that we were doing with Foundation, which predated our knowledge management, more formal knowledge management work, and then the work that we've been doing with Raven, iManage, and Foundation, and others on our enterprise search platform.
Gotcha. And where were you trying to get to? I mean, did you have a clear idea of what the outcome would be of what this
Well,
improved?
if we, for purposes of this discussion, I really want to focus on the enterprise search strand. Our broader discussion of knowledge management is quite large and complex, and I think well beyond the sort of the knowledge unlocked discussion. Focusing on the enterprise search piece, we had identified very early on that, unlike many of our peer firms, we did not have an enterprise search platform, a way to let the people in the firm tap into information that was contained in a variety of data sources across the firm. We viewed that as a gap that we needed to fill. So we were starting from a blank sheet of paper. When I look at the enterprise search bit in and of itself, I would say that we had two major goals. One was to provide a more elegant means of just searching the document management system. We're using an older version of iManage Work. And over time, we thought we could provide a better just native search experience, in the document management system. But the other thing that we had is we had been working for some years with Foundation and had developed a very robust database of information about our clients, the work we've done for them, who's done that work. And so the idea was to bring the power of that information into the enterprise search system and begin to leverage that to make it easier for our lawyers to find the relevant information more swiftly. So those were the broad contours of what we were after.
Gotcha. Fantastic. Okay, let's get into this into a bit more detail now. Let's start off with Foundation. I mean, in terms of what Foundation does, I mean, can you just tell us a bit more, and then just tell us a bit more in detail about what you were doing with Sidley?
Absolutely, yes. So when I talk about Foundation as a data platform, right, firms have lots of systems inside their firm, and they're built for a specific purpose. They do that purpose well, but rarely does a firm have the ability to pull those systems together and be able to transform that data into, a set of data that you can really leverage across the firm. And in addition to aggregating data sources across the firm, what Foundation does is give you really easy point and click configurable kind of tools so that you can add more data, right? I know a lot of information about a matter at new business intake or from my financial system, but there's also a lot that I don't know. I might not know when it closed and what the total deal value was and what some of those relevant deal characteristics were. And so Foundation allows you to build forms that you can either have marketing teams or case management teams, practice management, or lawyers fill out to gather more information. It really gives you a flexible place to build that kind of data gathering tools. And so once you have invested in that, which is what Sidley did, right? It's not just about matters. Foundation helps you gather data about clients, your firm people, and about your opportunities at the firm, submissions, things like that as well. So when you have, as Sidley has done, a multi-year journey to start collecting better data about your matters, your clients, and your firm people, then you can really start to leverage that in lots of different systems. And I think that's where Sidley saw the opportunity when they were starting this enterprise search project was, hey, we already have some really great data that we've taken the trouble to aggregate and augment, and we want to be able to leverage that.
Gotcha. And just to clarify one point for the listeners, in terms of how the data is collected, you're asking people in the business development team, partners, and so forth to actually fill out forms effectively, and to effectively manually insert that data in.
Well, the first thing that we're doing is we're going to grab everything that your firm systems already know about those clients' data or people, right? But at some point, there is a limit to that. And what we find is that within firms, you already have the pricing team, as an example, going and talking to partners and finding out deal characteristics once those deals are done and putting that in a spreadsheet. Then you have business development asking about those same deals so that they can submit them to chambers, and they're putting it in a spreadsheet. right? So what ends up happening is that you have all these different silos within the firm, and people are collecting data multiple times. It's certainly not efficient for the lawyers, because they're, no partner likes being asked 5 times about one particular deal.
Yeah.
So the whole goal of Foundation is, yes, people have to enter the data, but they're already entering the data. They're just entering it into a siloed place today. And what Foundation offers is a central place, so that what one group within your firm knows, everybody knows, right? You can capture it once and leverage it.
Gotcha. And absolutely. And that's a very key point, a key takeaway already, really, which is the point about breaking down the silos, indeed. And so, Richard, I mean, when did you first start working with Foundation, and how did that evolve?
Yeah, so Foundation, I don't even know the year in which we started working with Foundation, because it predates my joining Sidley in my current role, which was kind of neat in that, the Foundation effort had been going on for several years. Cindy, I don't know if you know the year offhand.
Yeah, I think it was about 6 years ago. So somewhere in 2014 time.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right. So I had worked at Sidley in prior years as a partner and done other things and come back. So I rejoined Sidley in my current role in September of 2016. And so when I come in to work at the beginning of our knowledge management program, Foundation exists. And even at that point in time, we've got matter profiles for every matter that's been worked on since 2005. Now, those matter profiles get increasingly rich over time. We have a voracious appetite for data. But to give you a sense of the scope of what we've got, today we've got roughly 35,000 clients in the system, about 180,000 matters. There is a matter profile, some with more information than others, obviously, but going back to everything that's been worked on since 2005. And so initially, and the phrase that we like to use is to say that it was incubated in marketing, but it's not a marketing tool. It is a firm tool. And at some point in that sort of 2016, 2017 timeframe, we realized that we had enough data so that it could be used for more than just marketing, business development purposes. There was a sufficient enough data set that it could be used as one of the engines of our enterprise search work. Again, it's a firm tool. Now, I want to add on a little bit to what Cindy had talked about just gathering the data and wanting to make sure that it's entered once. But I think we can go beyond that, which is we are always looking at ways that we can get more data into the system, and we are looking at ways in a number of different ways. We've had panel discussions about the different ways that we can go about getting data, automate the capture of that data. Maybe it's using technology in interesting ways to harvest it from documents that we've got, information that we've got in the firm right now. It may be that we partner with third parties who have the data and we can build those pipes in. So we are, it's not just manual, it's not just grabbing from the accounting system, it is all of the above. And anything that we can do to enrich Foundation helps us enrich all the things that we use Foundation for, including enterprise search.
Awesome. Well, that's a beautiful segue to iManage Raven. So Joe, just let's have a quick recap again. So what does iManage Raven do, at least your part of it? And then if you could tell us a bit about the relationship with Sidley and then the work you've been doing, and then we'll get into some more detail about how you've worked with Foundation. But first of all, what has iManage Raven been doing, and tell us about that relationship with Sidley.
Yeah, sure. So the part of iManage Raven that I'm responsible for is the Knowledge Unlocked proposition, and at the heart of the Knowledge Unlocked proposition is a product called iManage Insight. So really, Insight really has been engineered from the ground up for the knowledge management community, and it's powered by the Raven Knowledge Graph, which enables users to go beyond simple retrieval searching by connecting the data together in order to find new insights and new content from within their DMS, but also other third-party systems such as foundation, which we're talking about today. Our relationship with Sidley goes back, actually, I think, Rich, goes back, I think, prior iManage days. I think we were acquired during the implementation of Insight, but it goes back a number of years. And yeah, we learned a lot from the Sidley implementation, and Rich's feedback has been great, which has led to this out of the box connector that we've now developed with Foundation.
Well, let's just dig into what that means. So you mentioned two things there, which I think probably need a bit more digging. Knowledge graph. What is a knowledge graph? It's a term I've heard a few times. I'm sure the audience has too, but can you just explain what is a knowledge graph?
Sure. So a knowledge graph, really. So the metadata from Foundation is very important to us as it improves the search relevancy, and the metadata, the Insight uses that metadata in the same way Google uses it to power its knowledge graph and relevancy. So, for example, when you search in Google for Tom Cruise, you get a knowledge card of the movie star, not a list of documents, with the words Tom and Cruise in. It knows you're searching for a thing, not a string, essentially, and that string is a person. So Google have built an ontology of that metadata from IMDb and sites like Wikipedia. With Insight, we do the same with the metadata from Foundation, building a matter-centric ontology and linking it back to the documents in the DMS. Yeah.
So just to sort of bring it down to layman's terms,
Sure.
Really a knowledge graph is effectively a synopsis, a sort of textual synopsis of a subject or entity with multiple links out to the source documents.
Yeah, it's adding more meaning to that object within the index. It's a document may not have that metadata associated about a matter with it. So, but by deriving that from that connection, you're able, and then with the rich metadata from Foundation, you can derive more meaning to that document. Essentially, for instance, being able to, being able to answer, more answers when using the Insight engine instead of, the keyword searches. So, for instance, I may be wanting to, contact somebody regarding this particular client with this particular matter industry, and then I want to find the final deal documents relating to that. So that it's very unlikely that metadata would be on that document or that person level.
Right.
With that knowledge graph, you can then, answer those types of questions.
So what?
I think it would. I'm sorry if I could jump in there. I would just say, right, like a lot of times when people are searching, they don't necessarily want the documents. That's kind of what I hear you saying, Joe, right? I'm looking for a matter. I'm looking for expertise in an industry. I'm looking for someone at the firm that has expertise. I don't know, Rich. I think.
Yeah, no, I can make this all really concrete, really fast, which is, to the point of the way we think about it. One is, and we don't talk so much about knowledge graphs and all that, but we do talk a lot about just the value of connecting and connections. So the two data points that we use all the time are client industry, matter industry. And so when we want to look for, use an example, an example of a merger agreement, if I just search in the document management system, I'll find lots of merger agreements. But I don't know necessarily what industries the clients were in. But we profiled that information at the matter level in Foundation. And when we brought that information together with the information about the documents into Insight, we have the document. We know the document's associated with a matter. We have the matter. We have information about that matter, like what industry that matter relates to. So now we're able to, by bringing that information together, we're able to search for mergers in a given industry. Then, because we know that about those matters, we now know that about every document that's associated with that matter, whether that information is contained in the document or not.
Gotcha.
And
gotcha.
and this goes, on and on. Now, we don't have yet robust enough data in our system about which judges are involved in the litigation matters that we have. But again, if I know that we have 15 cases before Judge Joe Campbell, because we know that at the matter level, now I can look at ways that we might have argued things in this case in front of Judge Joe Campbell, not because the documents say it, but because we know it about the matter. By bringing this information together, we can search and move around. And the beautiful thing is, when we have this information and we lay it out in Insight, the users just see a filter. I'm doing a document search and I want to filter on matter industry. They do it quite naturally. They don't even think about the fact that they could not do this in the DMS because the data wasn't there. They don't think about the fact that if they went into Foundation and identified those matters, they couldn't find the documents because the documents aren't there. There's no trace as this data came from someplace else. They just see it and do it as if it was always there. The other part that we're getting to is, traditionally, all we've had is document search. And so we fling our lawyers at document management systems, and they go searching through millions of documents for the right thing. Those searches aren't as effective as they could be. What they probably want to find is a search for a merger agreement from when we were in a matter similar to what we're looking at right now. What they really want to do is start looking for matters that make sense. And what they really want is not even the matter, but the person who did the work, who knows something about the situation that we're dealing with right now. But we couldn't give that to them. All we gave them was, I'm going to throw you in a document management system and say, search, or the pardon the interruption email. Broad-based email across the firm. Who knows something about how to deal with this situation in that industry when this or that has occurred? We're never going to get rid of those. But we can give people tools to more rapidly hone in on what they're really looking for.
Yep.
And often what we do now is we're able to watch those requests, realize that we can attack them with Foundation or with sort of Foundation plus Insight to more rapidly get people to where they need to be. As I look at our system right now, about 75% of the searches are document searches. When we first launched it, we launched it in the spring, 75% document searches, roughly even split across the rest. We do client search, matter search, people search, document search, those four kinds. 75% document search, even split on the rest. I assume that the people search was a lot of people looking for information about themselves. Sure enough, over time, that number's trending down. And I expected that client searches were probably, for most of the work that we're doing, as opposed to pitching matters, less frequent than matter searches. And sure enough, we're seeing those matter searches kind of trend up. Now it's about 12% matters with client and people sort of lagging. If we get to a point where we can have really powerful, more powerful than we have now, people searches, I think those expertise searches should go up I want to find the person who can guide me through this, as opposed to sifting through all those documents. And how are we going to get there? By getting more and more data into Foundation and working with iManage and Raven to let us do more intelligent things with that data. Look at those connections. Who's billing time to those matters that we know something about? Because we got that information from the time billing system. All because it is all linked together in the knowledge graph. And that's the value.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, very well put. Awesome. Well, let's get into that now. Let's look at this kind of marriage between iManage Raven and Foundation. How did that work? How did that come about? And if you can maybe explain, perhaps using layman's terms, if you can, how the two companies are sharing that data.
Well, we, obviously have admired iManage. They've admired us. So, just two companies coming together who really are trying to serve their customers better and help our law firm serve their clients more effectively. So I think we have the same goals in mind. And obviously at Foundation, and Rich talked about it, right? We're kind of a Switzerland of systems, in that we'll work with third parties that are going to help our customers leverage the data in Foundation. So iManage is a great partner. And really one of the first things that they identified was, in part because of the Sidley journey of pulling data out of Foundation into the iManage Insight implementation. That was pretty easy to do, Rich, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah. I mean, our work predates their formal partnership.
Right.
Right. We knew we had the information. We knew what we were building. We knew they had to come together. These two platforms, I mean, I could say they were meant to be together, or they play well with others really, really well. So from a technical perspective, in implementing our system, I don't think we spent very much time talking to the folks at Foundation, because we had the information, and to get the data to flow into Insight was not particularly challenging. And when I look at all the things that we had to address over the course of this project, getting the data from the Foundation universe into Insight was easy, so easy that I was at some conferences and I ran into some of the Foundation people and some of the Raven people and the iManage side, and they would say, we're gonna bring this together. We're going to figure out how to make it work. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We already did it.
Well, their goal is really to make that even easier, right?
And I'm sure it'll be fantastic. So couldn't be easier to pull together.
No, it's a good point, Rich. Well, let's just go back to Joe. So Joe, I mean, on your side, how was it for you, if I can ask that?
Yeah, no, it wasn't a technical challenge, and what we're trying to do, or what we're doing with Knowledge Unlocked, is not every firm is blessed to have a Rich Robbins in, so with his innovative way. So we're packaging this up so that it can go to other firms and get even faster implementations, and get value quicker with this packaging up that we're working with Foundation at the moment.
Well, just on the technical point, for people who are listening and thinking, well, this sounds interesting, I fancy a go at this. And now feel free to get very technical if you like, Joe. I mean, how do you get information from Foundation into Insight? How do you do that?
So there's a data pipe from Foundation to where Insight lives, and then we have an extensible connector framework called Raven Pipeline, which allows you to write SDKs and connectors and stages there. So it was an extension to that pipeline, which the best way to think about pipeline is to think of a pipe with documents going in, getting enriched with metadata, making connections to the knowledge graph, and then going into the index. So it's a powerful tool. Not many clients actually see it because it's generally behind behind the interface, but it's very extensible and can connect to many different repositories.
Awesome.
And I would probably add to that, from the foundation side, we have an export database that is a flattened database. It's very easy to pull data out of it to leverage in other firm systems like Insight, and also a REST API. So there's a combination of ways that you can pull data to use in Insight, and in multiple ways. Frankly, it's not just that you're pulling data to use as filters, but you can also pull data from Foundation so that you can index it and enrich the results, and then display information. So display information about your matters, clients, or people in that knowledge graph. So lots of ways to leverage the data once you get it out of Foundation.
Awesome.
That's a really important point, Cindy. I mean, if you look at how we're using the data, and again, our discussion of how we use Foundation across Sidley is incredibly rich, and we could talk about that and never talk about enterprise search. And again, I'm kind of living inside enterprise search for this discussion. But even looking at the data, getting the data to flow was the easy part. Making decisions about how to use the data inside Insight is very it's nuanced. Which data points do we have so much of that we're going to use as top tier filters? Which data points do we want to use to power some of the search, to blend into the mix so that when you type a search term, you're looking at that? Which data points do we not want to do either of those with, but we want to display when results come up? And all of that is a function of what data we have and the feedback that we're getting from our user community. So we are regularly reviewing. So as more data becomes available to us, perhaps something gets promoted to a filter. As the user interface gets enhanced in Insight, we can do more things with it.
Got you. Look, let's just build on that point. No, that makes a lot of sense, and it's a very human thing, because it's a very much a sort of organizational decision. And I just wanted to just explore a little bit in terms of that organizational aspect. If there are other law firms or in-house legal teams or whoever who are listening to this and they're thinking, well, I fancy doing this. I mean, Richard, let's just briefly start with you, and then we'll go around. Just briefly, I mean, what advice would you give to someone else embarking on this journey?
I have two observations, kind of reflections on this side. One is, it's really important. It is critical that we have a consistent understanding across the organization of what different data points mean. And it was really our foundation team inside Sidley that was leading that charge. And sometimes we would pay attention and sometimes we wouldn't. I'll give a really simple example. What does it mean to say that someone is has a relationship attorney with respect to a client? As we were building this and not really thinking and not looking at some of the reference material that the foundation team inside Sidley had given to us, we thought, well, a relationship attorney is anyone who has a relationship with the client. That meant they build time to them. So we built Insight deployed around that assumption. Well, it turns out that that's not how we use that phrase. We use that phrase typically to mean that's the person who either has handling responsibility or billing responsibility. So you pull up Foundation and you see who are the relationship attorneys, and you see 5. You go into Insight and you see 57, because we thought it was everyone who billed time. We could play this story out across the organization. If you do not have a consistent understanding of what those data points mean that flow through your systems, you're going to create mass confusion.
Gotcha. Well, let me just stop you there. So I think just to boil it down, your key takeaway is, aside from all the tech, you've really got to, as an organization, agree on your terminology and or your ontology, your taxonomy.
Yep.
You've got to get that absolutely crystal clear.
Yep.
That's the
second point.
And briefly,
that we had to learn was, up to our work with Insight, we thought of Foundation as an endpoint. And with Insight, we started to use Foundation as a source for other systems. And we had to start paying better attention to how that data was flowing, because there might be an evolution in the way that we're looking at data in Foundation, but we didn't communicate that well with the enterprise search team. And so all of a sudden, the data isn't flowing as we anticipated. So more collaboration and understanding. It's a data architecture. It's data definitions, it's data architecture, it's data flows. We could have saved some time had we paid more attention to that. It's not that we didn't pay any attention, but getting those things right sets you up for success.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, well, just to reiterate, again, I guess the takeaway there is cultural awareness, cultural change of what you're trying to do as a business. Cindy, what would be your sort of key takeaways for people to consider if they want to go down this road?
You know, the first thing I would say is, we talked a little bit about it in the beginning, which is you're probably already capturing a lot of this data. But how can you as a firm put it into repositories that enable you to leverage it in multiple places? How can you capture it once and make sure that everyone in the firm who needs to know that information has access to it? And, to quote a famous American motivational speaker, you don't have to be great to start, but you do have to start to be great. So, you can crawl, walk, run through this, right? You might start with industry and matter type and getting those right within your firm. But, when you get to the point where Sidley is, they're moving beyond that now, right? They're capturing detailed deal points about M&A matters or more details about litigations and complex arbitrations, right? But so start where you are. It's okay to not, if you don't have perfect data, that's fine. But you've got to start to realize that you need to leverage this data firm-wide, and pulling together systems like Foundation and iManage, I think, will really help facilitate those conversations.
And just one question to you, Cindy. I mean, do you think, just referring to the point that Richard made, I mean, do you think that you should almost like hold off for a couple of months and get your story straight in terms of what it is that you're trying to look for? I mean, bring everyone together and say, look, before we start doing this, let's actually agree on our terminology. What is it we really want? Why do we want it? And then bring you in and start doing it.
I think that we've had some firms come to us and ask us that question. And, the problem is, I think with that is that we could sit and talk about our terminology all day, but until we're actually implementing a system, we might not have the motivation to get that conversation done. Whereas when you're doing a Foundation implementation, we're walking you through all of that, right? There's some key business decisions. Of course, you need to know the business drivers. You need to know what problems you're trying to solve, and you need to have done your homework on your processes. But I wouldn't wait for perfect data. I wouldn't wait for perfect data definitions. I would say that if you start to do a Foundation implementation or even an iManage Insight implementation, you have those conversations and you have vendors who will help facilitate those conversations with you. And that makes a big difference in actually getting that project accomplished.
Got you. So learn by doing, I guess, is the takeaway there. And just to finish
Yes.
off in terms of the key takeaways, Joe, I mean, from your perspective, I mean, what should people be trying to think about if they want to go this way?
I agree that, that part of the whole knowledge unlocked packaging is that, iManage and Foundation have had these discussions, what we have a unified schema. We know a relationship a partner who goes into this schema to be exposed as a facet, so you should get the right number of people in that facet. So a lot of the work around knowledge unlocked and this Foundation connector is that we recognize that these conversations are happening at a lot of firms, and we as vendors should be talking together to have that straight and not and have it as a repeatable quicker time to value. So yeah, I think if you're thinking about it, then then go with it. We have that out of the box fixed schema now in place to make it quicker to value essentially, and start getting that that experience of finding the right document within Insight using your the knowledge graph.
Right. So I think what you're saying is that there's plenty of, you might say, preset capabilities that you, so you don't have to start from scratch, and if you don't have to start from scratch,
That's exactly it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Joe, because we have talked to, we've sort of compared those notes between the two systems, and we have a set of starter data that we will help firms gather and leverage in both places, and that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's just look at the future now. We're just going to wrap up now, getting towards the end. This is just really for, I guess, Raven and Foundation, and then we'll come back to Rich for the final comments. So in terms of your two companies and the projects you've worked on, what happens next? I mean, do you integrate more deeply? I don't know, maybe you've integrated as much as you can. Are there new areas of data that you'd like to unlock? I mean, what happens next? Cindy?
Oh, I think there's limitless possibilities, really. We're just getting started, quite frankly. We're pulling together that standard data. We're going to help firms pull their custom fields that they've configured within Foundation and be able to leverage that within iManage Insight. Then there's lots of things that we can do. There's great insight from Raven potentially being able to pull that back, and what can we learn from the documents about the matters to help more automatically profile those matters within Foundation. That's a long-term goal, but that would be fabulous. I think firms could really leverage the Raven capabilities in order to do that. And then within Foundation itself, being able to, one thing we don't do, we don't do documents really. We'll link out to documents, but being able to more effectively leverage what you've got in iManage within Foundation as well. We'd love to see that. So lots of possibilities with this partnership, just getting started really.
Fantastic. And Joe, your view?
Sure, yeah. iManage certainly does do documents, and the Foundation do that metadata, with the IMDb and Google analogy. Really, yeah, for us, we have that. Once we have that data, we want to integrate further. We want to, have this as a springboard. Bring in more AI in the search, bringing in recommendations based on Foundation data, providing answer cards so you can use natural language processing to ask a question to get an answer, and then further personalization as well with that richer metadata. So.
Awesome. Actually, one thing we didn't cover, and maybe you did, but I missed it, was clause level search. I mean, I guess that's very much in Raven's ballpark, isn't it? I mean, can that be brought into this as well?
Absolutely, yeah. It's with that knowledge graph that the clause may just be a standalone clause somewhere. You can bring in that metadata and link it up to have a richer picture of that clause of the industry and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, look, thank you very much for listening, everybody. We're now just moving to the last section of this episode, and I just wanted to go back to Richard, who is obviously the client. Two questions really, and that is fundamentally, what do you think has objectively improved now since you did this, and where else would you like to take it? What's next in your objectives?
Sure. So. I mean, what we've seen, and we launched globally in May, so during the pandemic. We're thrilled that we have an engaged group of users. So we see people using it, and we get a steady stream of feedback. You have a lot of anecdotal, I couldn't have found this before. That was great. I mean, those sorts of success stories. What I appreciate even more is the constructive, helpful feedback. It would be great if it could do this. Can we do that? And so I take the people who give us, our engaged users who give us great feedback, and we work with them. We have a long-term plans and a roadmap. What we've deployed is just version 1. And everything that Cindy's talked about, everything that Joe's talked about, and I'm in constant conversations with Joe and the team and Cindy and the team. How can we get more data into Foundation? How can we make best use of that data in Insight? The jewel of all this is the index. And I look forward to harvesting that index and applying much more sophisticated bits of technology. We're just getting started. And so, the opportunities are limitless.